Hi everyone, it is Mr. Moreau again, and today's lesson is all about the idea of speciation. Now, what is speciation? Speciation is the process of new species forming. And in order for us to learn about this process, we also have to know this word species. Now, you can see in the title here, Speciation, the story of how one group of animals of the same species became separate groups of different species. How do we know that two animals are part of the same species? Or you could also ask the question, how do we know that two animals are part of a different species? Well, a species means that they can make offspring and their offspring can make offspring. So let's think of a few easy examples here. How about an elephant and a mouse? Are those the same species? Of course, no, because we know that they cannot make offspring, so they cannot be part of the same species. What about something that's more similar? How about a horse and a donkey? Can they have offspring? Yes, their offspring is called a mule. But can a mule have offspring? The answer is no. So even though they can make offspring, the offspring cannot make offspring. That again teaches us that horse and donkey, although they are similar, are part of a different species. So that's how you know when two organisms are part of the same species. They can have offspring together, and the offspring can have offspring. So what we're going to do now is go through a few pictures together, and I'd like you to feel free to pause this video and catch up with filling in the blanks on your worksheet and catching up with the pictures that I've drawn for you. And here is that story. Let's focus on picture number 1. I'd like you to imagine a diverse population of a pretend animal called the Orby. And here is what the Orby looks like. It's kind of a weird looking thing with a little small head. Kind of looks like Mike Wazowski from Monsters, Inc. And there's some tall Orbies, some short Orbies, some medium Orbies. So that is the diverse population that I'd like you to imagine first. In picture number 2, I want to tell you that a new mutation causes some Orbies to have hair in the next generations. And that Orby would look something like this. So here you can see that it's a very similar looking animal, but a mutation, a mistake in the DNA, has caused a new trait to appear. A new gene is present, and that causes hair to be present for the first time. Well, like we've learned about before, some mutations are good, some mutations are bad, some mutations have no effect. Well, this mutation turns out to be helpful. The new mutation helps the Orbies blend into the environment so they can survive also. So you can see that it would be a benefit for Orbies to have hair because they can blend into their environment, and that would make them more difficult to see for predators, so their chances for survival increases. So this mutation turned out to be a good one. Let's go down to picture number 4. Now let's talk about the entire environment in which the Orbies live. I want you to imagine two groups of Orbies on two different sides of a hill, the west side of a hill and the east side of the hill. Okay? And over time, environments always change. Okay? Maybe the environment gets hotter or colder or something new happens. In picture number 5, I'd like us to imagine that over time, a new river forms between the two hills. And there it is. So it's the same, basically the same picture as number 4, but in picture number 5, let's draw a new river separating the west side of the hill from the east side of the hill. So now these two groups of Orbies can no longer move back and forth and mix up with each other. The west side and the east side are now separated. Let's focus on the west side of the hill first. Okay? On the west side of the river, it starts to get very hot, and that is going to cause Orbies with no hair and longer legs to be able to stay cool. The opposite of that, a short Orby with hair, that is going to be, it's going to be more difficult for them to keep cool. So as a result, they will become very hot and very uncomfortable. That means it's going to be easier for a tall, hairless Orby to survive, and it will be more difficult for a short, hairy Orby to survive. Let's go on to picture 7. Now what about the diet, what they eat on the west side of the hill? Western Orbies eat flying insects. Orbies with longer legs can eat more insects. So that's going to look something like this. A short Orby is going to have a difficult time catching those flying insects because it cannot reach high enough. But an Orby with longer legs can perhaps reach higher or jump higher to get the food that it needs to live. So over time, more and more tall Orbies will survive more often. Let's look at number 8, picture number 8. So now much later, it's possible for another different mutation to cause stripes on the Western Orby's legs, and that would look something like this. So this female is looking to our right, and she sees this male with stripes on his legs. And that is a new trait that she might find very attractive. So she's over there looking at his legs, and that looks more attractive than the Orby on the left side. So it's more likely that the Orbies with striped legs will reproduce and pass their traits on to the next generation. So again, we learned that sometimes mutations are good or bad or have no effect. Maybe it's good because it helps with survival. In this case, this mutation is good because it helps with reproduction. Let's look at picture number 9. Okay, now we are over on the opposite side of the hill, on the opposite side of the river. We're looking at the east side. On the east side of the river, the temperature is much colder, so this way shorter Orbies that have more hair can survive more easily. So you can see that this tall, hairless Orby is very cold, and the short, hairy Orby can stay warm more easily. So it is a survival advantage to be short and hairy over on the other side of the river because the environment is different. Let's look at picture number 10. On the east side of the river, Orbies eat insects that live underground. That means that shorter Orbies with big teeth for digging can eat more. And that would look something like this. A taller Orby is going to have a more difficult time reaching all the way down to the ground to eat these bugs. The short Orby with longer teeth is going to have an easier time eating the bugs that are underground. Always remember that how did these Orbies get the way that they are? Random changes in DNA means that we will have a diverse population. It's always important to remember that you should not say that the short Orbies with long teeth became short or have long teeth because they needed to have teeth or because they wanted to have teeth. No, it is not because these animals are trying to become a certain way. Random DNA changes makes for a diverse population. So some Orbies happen to be short, some Orbies happen to be tall. Some Orbies have short teeth, some Orbies have long teeth. It is the most beneficial trait to be shorter with longer teeth. In picture number 11, we can see that eastern males attract females by dancing and shaking their fur. Females prefer males with more hair. So not only is it a benefit to have hair because it keeps them warm, but it also helps males attract a female. And that's going to look something like this. So this female in the middle is looking to our right at this male with much more hair than the male on the left. So it is more attractive. He is also dancing and shaking his hair, and that also helps attract a female. So the male on the right is more likely to reproduce than the male on the left. So over time, we can see that that kind of a trait would become more and more common in future generations. Finally, in picture number 12, we can see the Western Orby and the Eastern Orby compared to each other from what they were at the beginning. Now they're going to look like this. So on the left and the right, you can see the Western versus the Eastern Orby after many generations, after a long time of change. This is what they look like now. Look back at picture number 1. They used to be all very similar to each other, but because they were separated and because they experienced a change in their genes over time, we see very different Orbies now. Imagine these Orbies living together. Perhaps the river goes away, and now the Orbies can go back and forth. Well, the Orby on the left is attractive to females because it's tall, has no hair, and has stripes on its legs. The Orby on the right is attractive to females because it's short, has lots of hair, and can dance and move around to attract a female. Those two have nothing to do with each other anymore. They are so different. A Western female is not going to like an Eastern male, and an Eastern female is not going to like a Western male. That is going to cause them to not make offspring anymore. So we can say that they are now so different that we call them different species. And that is the process of how new species form. It always begins with some kind of separation. Separation is the very important first step for how one species can become two different species. We've talked in evolution before about how we have common ancestors with all other living things. Well, if that's true, how did we become all different species and separated from each other? Maybe we were separated because of geography. We moved to different locations and changed differently over time. Maybe we were separated by time. Consider this example. Some flowers reproduce in the spring and some flowers reproduce in the fall. That is a separation because of time. Or we could have separation because of behavior. In the Orby example, we see that some animals do a fancy dance with their hair, and other animals do a fancy display with their striped legs. Because of those differences in behavior, we have separation for that reason. So there's many different reasons why one group of animals can be separated into two groups. But it's important to remember that that is the first step in the process of speciation, and that is how new species form over time.